Joining me now, Major Glenn Ignazio, to talk about, well, all things foreign policy. He may not even know that yet, but we're starting with Afghanistan, Major. Sir, Afghanistan. We've already rehashed everything we've screwed up, which was pretty much everything. But going forward here, where does this country go from here? Is Panjshir Valley basically already toast? Our resistance forces crushed? Is this the land of the Taliban now? What's the status?
Yeah, actually, it's still chaotic. I mean, so the misinformation system is working really well with the Taliban. So they're doing that very big on social media and so forth. So the Panjshir Valley, there's still a resistance, but there's others like Pakistan helping the Taliban with some of the northern operations there. As far as the country itself and the politics, it's really interesting is you have these four, I think it's four that are on the top list of terrorists that are wanted, and they're supposedly heading up the government. So it's going to be really interesting what unfolds. But as far as the U.S. is concerned, if they're starting to address the Taliban as the actual government, does that mean that the embassy is going to start opening up again? I mean, you see China moving into Bagram. One of the reasons why we pulled out of there is a great opportunity for them to move in. So you're seeing a lot of these foreign entities like, China and Russia and others keeping their embassies open to take advantage of us pulling out. So as far as the U.S. engagement, it seems to be very remote. You see all the other countries going in. And honestly, I wonder if the Taliban's even going to still be able to hold the country after a bit of time with their friends with the ISIS is not really going to be helping them. They're actually fighting them. So it's chaos on the ground from, operations militarily and politically.
Major, I'm glad you brought up ISIS because that's actually where I was going next with this. Everybody remembers ISIS it was mainly during Barack Obama's presidency. We're not going into all that. When they were just carving up Iraq and Syria, and they held a significant portion of territory for some time, which I've never seen from a radical Islamic terrorist group. And then, of course, Trump gets elected and we bombed them to smithereens and they're gone, only not gone. My question is, how powerful are they still? What kind of numbers, what kind of equipment, what are we talking about here? Are they just 20 guys in a mud hut somewhere? Are they 20,000? What are they?
I mean, ISIS really doesn't recognize, as far as the history and their backing, doesn't really recognize borders per se. So the whole idea of going into Afghanistan and taking over Afghanistan is a great opportunity for them. I mean, one of the reasons why they're enemies with Taliban is, one, they've recruited many people from the Taliban because they're much more extreme, much more rigid. The Taliban wants to make money on the black market, wants to make money with the drugs and stuff, completely opposite of what ISIS wants to do. And then now ISIS coming out of Iraq, again, they don't look at borders, and terrorism and violence is their number one key. But we talked about this a little bit with Al-Qaeda. Okay, Al-Qaeda was like a franchise, almost like McDonald's, right? You have these franchises all over the world, with Al-Shabaab and others in different countries. And really, ISIS is sort of following that model. So they're so much more extreme that they literally can ride on the model that Al-Qaeda, structured, which is like these franchises all over the world. But they are so extreme, purely in violence, purely a jihad movement. And if you're on board, great. If you're not, then you're an enemy and you're slaughtered. So it's really one of those things that this is a global threat, and where they're able to make as much ground and real estate, they will. And right now, Afghanistan is a prime point for that.
Okay, so if I'm going off of the assumption that the Taliban are going to take over all, if not a significant portion of Afghanistan, I mean, they already have a significant portion. Let's just assume they're going to be the government there. I think that's a fairly safe assumption. They're going to they've already publicly announced they're going to be working with China. They already are working with Pakistan. That's not exactly news for anybody.
Right.
Those are some pretty heavy hitters to have standing behind you. What chance do these other terrorist organizations like ISIS have of getting anything accomplished in Afghanistan when you're going to have the Taliban there who have the juice to run you out?
Right. Good point. So the Taliban, and one of the relations that's really good with them in Pakistan was, when Pakistan was fighting, the Indian country in Kashmir and so forth, the Taliban helped out Pakistan. So they've always had a close relation with ISI, which was the intelligence service in Pakistan when we were there, and of course now with Pakistan as a nation. So the Taliban has that relationships, and of course Pakistan's helping with the fighting in the Northern Alliance against those people in the north. So the interesting part is, the Taliban, you have the educated individuals that are leading the government. They're using PR and public relations well, but you also have these thugs around the nation that are not very, they're practically illiterate. So these are sort of their pawns and their soldiers out there. So the Taliban is it's a very interesting organization because of, again, you have these educated individuals in the capital and these non-educated thugs out there. So you wonder how fractured they are as an organization themselves. Now, the interesting part with ISIS is that ISIS is definitely going to be able to use Afghanistan as a source of material and weapons and so forth. So think of all the weapons we left behind, all those explosives, all those 20,000 hand grenades and so forth. So ISIS really can either buy or procure by taking over different areas in the Taliban much of the hardware we left behind. So it's not just a threat of the Taliban using that, and the Taliban is really focused on Afghanistan. The biggest threat is ISIS getting some of that and using that as an international terrorist funding for their explosives and so forth. So that's the really scary part about ISIS, is being able to acquire some of that stuff that we left behind. They're a terror organization that doesn't recognize borders. So that's their mentality. And so if they can take over part of Afghanistan to operate, either get materials or to get weapons and so forth, they're going to. And they'll take that opportunity anywhere, regardless if it's Africa, Afghanistan, or anywhere else.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.